This exhibition tells the story of Thomas Mckellar, a Black Bostonian, World War I veteran, and artist model who became the unsung hero of Boston's public art. Over the course of almost a decade, he modeled for ceiling murals in this city, as well as a monumental statue commemorating the 300th anniversary of the Pilgrim's Landing in Plymouth. The exhibition centers around a set of drawings in the Gardner's permanent collection that have never before been seen together. 3 years ago, I first came across these drawings in our storage facility, and 3 aspects of them immediately stood out. First, that they were all signed by John Singer Sargent. Second, that most of them depicted the same man. And third, that he was Black. Now, it was that last point that immediately caught my attention. These sketches were made in preparation for a cycle of paintings that covered the ceiling of the Museum of Fine Arts, depicting all white figures. What the drawing showed was that the model for these white figures was clearly a Black man. And this exhibition tells his story for the first time. This timeline tells the story of Thomas Mckellar's life. Born in 1890 in Wilmington, North Carolina, as a young man, he joined the Great Migration, the movement of many Black citizens from southern states to the north to seek new job opportunities. By 1913, Thomas Mckellar had arrived in Boston, and he landed a job at the city's premier luxury hotel, the Hotel Vendome. It was there that a chance encounter would change the course of his life. That chance meeting led to an invitation to Thomas to come and model in the studio of John Singer Sargent. The chance encounter between Thomas Mckellar and John Singer Sargent in the elevator of the Hotel Vendome led to Mckellar's work as an artist model. He started in 1916 posing for all of the figures in the ceiling of the Museum of Fine Arts in the new rotunda that Sargent was decorating with murals of Greek gods and goddesses. This drawing is a sketch or a preparatory study for the Greek god Apollo in the rotunda of the Museum of Fine Arts, the murals that John Singer Sargent created between 1916 and 1921. In it, we can really see the mechanics of transformation as Sargent transformed Thomas Mckellar, a Black artist's model, into a white Greek god. It starts at the top corner of the drawing. You can see here that Sargent's made a sketch of Thomas Mckellar's face and his shoulders. He then moves on to make a second drawing. That second drawing is right here, and that's a study after the head of a famous ancient statue of Apollo. After he's finished those 2 studies, he moves on to the final drawing. He takes the head of the ancient statue and he transfers it onto the shoulders of Thomas Mckellar, which he copies in this final image. So it's in this drawing that you can really see the mechanics of that transformation from a Black artist model into a white Greek god. This painting is the only surviving portrait of Thomas Mckellar. John Singer Sargent made it around 1921 when the model was about 31 years old. Visitors often ask, what was the relationship between Thomas Mckellar and John Singer Sargent? The easy answer is, we don't really know, but several pieces of evidence can give us a clue. The fact that John Singer Sargent poured all of the care and attention into this painting of Thomas Mckellar, which was not done for a sum of money, for a commission like most of his portraits were done for, but for himself because he kept it in the studio, suggests that his work with Thomas meant something special to him, meant something perhaps more than simply their professional interaction. We know that John Singer Sargent was gay, and it's possible that Thomas may have been as well. His descendant, Deirdre Mckellar O'Brien, tells us that growing up, she remembers that in her family, Thomas was talked about in a certain way that later as an adult she felt might have meant that he was gay. Again, we don't know, but we can't exclude the possibility that the two men did have a romantic relationship at some point. This exhibition raises questions of race, class, and sexuality as relevant in Gilded Age Boston as they are today. The questions raised by this exhibition of race and of class and of sexuality and the richness of this story made it quickly clear that I could not tell it by myself. Neither my expertise in Renaissance art as an art historian, nor my experience as a white man growing up in this country equipped me to do justice to Thomas Mckellar's story. We decided to ask activists, educators, and artists in Thomas Mckellar's neighborhood, Boston's Roxbury neighborhood, to help us tell that story. And their responses, visible both on the gallery and our website, as well as contributions like the timeline, really helped to flesh out all of the many different points of view that make this story such a rich story.
And as a predominantly white staff, it was crucial that we thought very deeply about who we could engage to help us delve deeper into this material. So we have a picture here of some of those collaborators that Nat was mentioning, who not only shared some of their own lived experiences, but in sharing their deeply personal responses to a lot of these complex questions and issues that this material raised. It helped us come to a point where we could really investigate some of those themes more deeply, but also share those personal responses throughout the exhibition. And that's visible in the timeline that Alensa and Valerie contributed to, not just what was happening here in Boston at that time, but in the Black community here in Boston during Thomas Mckellar's lifetime. We also came up with different ways for those personal responses to be included with labels in the exhibition, where some of the collaborators chose drawings to write about from that deeply personal perspective. And we also asked a few of the collaborators, since a lot of these issues came up from that discussion with them, to write and define what some of these issues are, whether it was class and agency, queerness, erasure, that model and artist relationship, as well as others. And finally, we talked through how crucial it was, or how important it was, to have a space where not only collaborators but the visitors could almost decompress from some of these issues in these artworks and write their own personal responses. And so since the exhibition features Thomas Mckellar and his previously untold story, we asked visitors to think about who they know that has an untold story that they could share as well.
My name is Thurvil. I'm an artist and an educator, and I'm really excited to be a community collaborator with the Gardner for this exhibition. One of the things that drew me in as a community collaborator for this work was thinking about the relationships between artists and models. I myself am an artist who makes portraits, so I've been thinking a lot about the nuances that can happen between these two parties. So when I was first presented with the idea to join in as a community collaborator, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little skeptical. There tends to be a very weird history between Black and brown communities and arts institutions in Boston, and Black and brown artists and arts institutions in Boston. So when I first heard about what they were trying to do, my immediate thought was, I hope it gets done right, and I hope they're honest. So I was really excited to find throughout the process that the honesty was there, which also meant that there could be real conversation about important issues. In terms of thinking how race, class, and agency intersect with each other, I chose to highlight the economic impacts of that for each man. In the case of the model, Thomas, we see that he was indeed paid for his work, which we know is not often a thing that happens between artists and their models. And at the same time, Sargent is clearly making way more money for his labor without necessarily crediting any of the models that he utilizes to support his work. In terms of impact of this exhibition, I'm hoping to see not only more conversations about important issues, but also action and reflection that leads to positive change. Class dynamics and power. Thomas Mckellar transitioned from his position as a hotel bellhop to the primary model for John Singer Sargent after meeting on an elevator. This is symbolic of the intersection between race, class, and power that each man carried with them as they ascended to new heights of their careers. Despite the erasure of his skin in Sargent's paintings, Mckellar was paid for his labor. From 1921, one check survives for $20, not paid out all at once, but little by little over time. The modern-day equivalent for this sum is nearly $300. In comparison, for his Museum of Fine Arts murals, Sargent's initial payment was $40,000. That modern-day equivalent is almost $1 million. What could it have been like for Mckellar to navigate the spaces of the white and wealthy while Black? Remnants, a poem for Thomas Mckellar. Where did I start? Maybe with the Creator's breath in my lungs, full, deep, and quietly expanding. Maybe with the artist's charcoal caressing the curves of my neck, dashes, lines, and accents, amplifying perfection untapped. Maybe with outstretched arms, reaching towards the stars of my future. But like a smothered flame, rising only as smoke. I can't quite grasp. Where did I end? With my blackness fleeting, feet fading into the distance, leaving me stuck, merely a backdrop for layers. Deemed more pleasing, less complicated, if unstained. One of the things that impressed me about collaborating with the Gardner in this way was really seeing how they truly valued my expertise in not only my lived experience, but what I bring to the table as an arts professional. And I'd love to see more arts institutions in Boston continue that trend of not only thinking about Black and brown artists as experts, but also paying them for their time, acknowledging their labor, crediting their work, and continuing to modify their own processes internally based on the feedback they receive through collaboration.
Together, these many voices opened up new avenues of inquiry and new perspectives that we alone would not have brought to this exhibition. And so we're very grateful to all of them for sharing their thoughts and their ideas with us.
Working this way was really challenging, and it was really different for a lot of us, and it took more time, it took more resources, but it also really deepened our own learning about and ways of seeing both Thomas Mckellar in the drawings, as well as really thinking through all the research that we uncovered about him. And I think in working this way, both with community collaborators, the academic roundtable, Deirdre, Thomas's last living descendant, it really gave more of a humanistic lens to this material. And also I think in working this way, it also gave us different avenues for visitors to enter into the material and make those connections.